Practicing attorney. So another story that's come up in sports recently is this Stormy Daniels attorney guy who maybe was going to run for president thing. And this dude is all of a sudden not running for president, probably for good reason now, because according to, people, he's done some shady stuff.
All right, so we're talking about Michael Avenatti.
That guy. That guy.
Yeah, the
Michael?
Celebrity attorney. He's like,
he is a celebrity. He's an attorney and he's a celebrity.
And he represents celebrities as well, right? But
a double meaning?
Yes.
Whoa, English teacher likes.
So he was arrested this morning. Let's go over what happened and how it's related to sports. So a few days ago, last week, he was recorded in a meeting with Nike attorneys and a fellow co-conspirator. We'll get to that co-conspirator later. Making demands of Nike to pay him and a client of his $1.5 million to the client and somewhere around $25 million for Mr. Avenatti and his co-conspirator. Now, what were they claiming from Nike, or what was the base of asking for this money?
And I want to make sure the people that are listening understand that you got this straight from the source.
Yeah,
right? This isn't you getting the analysis from somebody else.
I read a couple of news reports on it, and I felt like I was getting 50% of the story, and so I read the entire. I mean, it's not super long; it's maybe 11 pages, but the actual filing that the Southern District of New York filed earlier today for the. Let's see, it's with the case is United States of America versus Michael Avenatti.
Southern District suck. United States of America versus enter your name here. Oh man.
Yeah. So it's the U.S. attorneys filing with the Southern District Court, which is the court that sits like in Manhattan and handles a lot of the white collar financial crimes that are prosecuted, Wall Street type of things, and.
I mean, how frightening is that to get the United States versus you?
So, Avenatti and his co-conspirator, who is also an attorney, claim to have a client who is a coach of an AAU basketball team. Okay, and for those who don't know, AAU is a kind of nationwide basketball program that's separate from high school. And
colleges.
And it's usually like the elite type players who they may play for their high school as well, but then in the non-basketball season or even sometimes during that basketball season, they will also play on their AAU team, which travels, goes to big fancy tournaments. Teams are often legally sponsored by Nike, Adidas, etc.
So, for example, LeBron James' kids and Dwayne Wade's kids, they play on AAU teams.
Yeah, and so this client that they have, this coach of the AAU basketball team, had a $72,000 a year contract with Nike that Nike was paying, and this was legal. They were sponsoring this team. Okay,
right. I'm sorry. It's just a little. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah,
the cut's a little deep, but that's okay.
And Nike decided to not renew that contract. Okay, and what this coach is claiming through his attorneys Avenatti and the co-conspirator is that he has information that Nike employees going up to the top levels of Nike were making payments to some of those athletes on the AAU team and their family. Essentially Nike making direct payments to these high school age kids and their families so that they would agree to be Nike athletes in the future.
So, and this is illegal. Why?
Well, it
has nothing to do with the high school or the colleges, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing is you can't play. It's like an NCAA violation, right? You can't pay. You can't receive payment for your play
then go and play in the NCAA.
And then go play in the NCAA.
Okay, that's why players don't go overseas and then come back, right? Like go overseas to play basketball in the professional European leagues and then come back. They can't do that to go to college after that, right?
I don't believe so. I don't think you can have been pro and then compete as amateur.
Okay.
Right? And there may be other crimes associated with that, or I don't know. I don't know that aspect as well as to why that's necessarily illegal activity. I know it is a violation of NCAA rules. Okay. So this coach claimed that he had information that Nike was doing this. Okay. And So the demand was that the coach would be paid $1.5 million. Okay. And that the attorneys, Michael Avenatti and co-conspirator, and that's what I keep saying, co-conspirator, because that's actually how they refer to this other individual in the official complaint. Okay, would be paid to run an internal investigation on Nike. So Nike would hire them to conduct an internal investigation into any misdeeds that Nike has with regard to paying underage players. Okay. And they even pitch it as, hey, this could be good for you because if we find stuff, which we will, because we know of stuff, you can self-report, and then it would look better if it came from you than from a journalist or some other source.
Or from us.
All that sounds good, right?
Sure. It sounds like they're trying to do Nike a solid.
Except that, one, they want somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million to run this investigation.
Sure.
And two, and Nike hasn't requested this investigation. Okay, right? Nike didn't approach them.
Right.
Okay. Two, they say, if you don't hire us and if you don't pay our client $1.5 million, we are going to have a press conference and we're going to lay out everything you're doing that we know of.
So basically threatening Nike.
Yes, they are threatening to ruin or damage Nike's reputation by going forward with these with reports that Nike is in violation by paying these players in AAU clubs. Okay, and all right. So what I want to do, I want to read a little bit from the complaint, just because it's so. To me, it's so interesting. I hope you find it interesting.
So what I thought was funny is I was sitting here like ready to do the show, and you over here like laughing to yourself reading this boring legal document.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what's in here.
So just to set it up, I guess. So Nike, a Nike attorney, right? So someone like me at my company, right? But an attorney at Nike fields a call from co-conspirator and Michael Avenatti. And they get the initial kind of breakdown of what Avenatti and co-conspirator want, right? They make the initial demand of them, okay? Right after that, this attorney contacts the FBI and says...
Hang up the phone.
They realize right away this is a shakedown.
Okay.
Right? That they're being extorted, okay? And so they contact their outside counsel, so a law firm that represents Nike. They contact the FBI. And so with their outside counsel, they agree to have meetings with Avenatti and co-conspirator at the law firm's offices. And the FBI, law enforcement agencies involved, are in on this. And they ask that the attorneys record both audio and video these conversations that they have. And so you have conversations over the next couple days with Avenatti, with co-conspirator, and them making their demands. And what's hilarious is that essentially these attorneys are going in and saying, okay, so this is the deal that you presented to our client before. Like, let's just make that like firm. Like, what is it exactly that you want?
So from your own mouth, tell us what you told them before to get them all recorded.
Exactly,
Wow.
right? And you would think that two very experienced attorneys like Avenatti and his co-conspirator would recognize, they're having me repeat information I already gave over the phone, but now in person in their offices, something might be up. But apparently that never dawned on them. So
basically they were dum-dums.
So March 19th, so this was, Tuesday of last week, let's say, early last week, was the initial meeting with the in-house attorney.
Okay.
The next day, March 20th, they're now in the law firm's offices. Okay. And they have another conversation. And Avenatti says in this meeting that he expected, and this is quote, to get our guy... get $1.5 million for our guy and to be hired to handle the internal investigation. And if you don't want to do that, we're done here. Okay. And then he went on to reiterate the threats that he had made the day before. And then I'm going to have to severely edit some of this language because he's... Yes. So he goes on to say, I'm not messing around with this. I'm not continuing to play games. This is Avenaughty. You guys know enough now to know you've got a serious problem, and it's worth more in exposure to me to just blow the lid on this thing. A few $1 million doesn't move the needle for me.
Oh.
I'm just being really frank with you. So if you just say it was, if that's what's being contemplated, then let's just say it was good to meet you, and we're done. I'll proceed with my press conference tomorrow. I'm not messing around with this thing anymore. So if you guys think that, we're going to negotiate $1.5 million and you're going to hire us to do an internal investigation, but it's going to be capped at $3 or $5 or $7 million, like, let's just be done. And I'll go and I'll take $10 billion off your client's market cap, but I'm not messing around. Every time I said messing, he did not actually say messing.
I'm not going to say the actual word.
So what he's saying here is, don't think you can buy me off with $3 or $5 or $7 million.
That doesn't even move the needle for Avenaughty.
Doesn't move the needle. Not worth my time. I would rather do the press conference and get paid a lot of money to go on news shows, do interviews, etc. Right, and just further build my fame. And he says, if you don't pay me the money, if you don't do this, I'll take $10 billion off your client's market cap. So that's like the stock, right? The stock in the company.
Basically damaging Nike's reputation to the point where it loses money. And he's claiming to the tune of $10 billion.
Yeah, so every time there's like a sell-off of shares, right? So if you watch a stock market, it goes up and down, right? And so if people feel like the company's been damaged in some way, they may sell their shares. Enough people do it, the stock starts to tank, and a company that was valued at $20 billion overnight could be valued at $10 billion because half of the investors fled, right?
Yeah, okay. And that's what he's threatening to do to them, basically.
That's what he's threatening to do. He's saying he's got information so damaging that investors are going to flee, okay? And in fact, some of that actually happened this morning. We'll get there. All right, so Avenaughty and co-conspirator 1, they continue to discuss the internal investigation. They said they'd be looking at tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds. It's crazy. All right, I'm just skipping forward. The next day, they have another meeting.
My favorite part of all this is getting him word for word. That's the best part.
Yeah. All right, so again, the next meeting, March 21, in the attorney's offices in New York.
And this is all being recorded by the FBI. This is all being
recorded, video and audio. And Avenaughty started again. He said, all right, for the internal investigation, and the attorneys did such great work here because they said, now just to be clear, like if we wanted to just pay the guy, the coach, $1.5 million, could we just do that and just be done with this? And Avenaughty and co-conspirator 1 were like, no, you have to pay us too. And that's really where they go wrong. Like it's questionable that even paying the coach wouldn't be some form of extortion, because I'm not sure if the coach would actually have standing to sue Nike. Like, I don't know what damage he incurred, right? Like, I don't know how he's a victim in all of this.
If anything, if Nike is paying players to be on his team, it's an advantage for him.
Yeah. And so it may be extortion anyways by just requesting $1.5 million, but it'd be extortion. I mean, the attorneys would be liable too, but it'd be more on the client would be involved, right?
Right.
Here, it's extortion perhaps by the coach, but it's really by the attorneys because they're looking to enrich themselves. Okay. Let's see.
You're getting
kind of reiterates a lot of the same things we already talked about.
You're getting the lawyer giggles. You're like, we lost stuff. Like, you're so excited about this.
And finally, they say, okay, well, Nike's attorneys, they say, okay, well, what if we want to just be done with this? Like, we don't really want you guys to do an investigation. What it'll just take for everyone to go away? Like, let's just be done with this. And they say, if Nike wants to have one confidential settlement and we're done, then they can buy that for $22.5 million and we're done. Full confidentiality. We ride off into the sunset. This guy, he's such a character.
This sounds like a poorly written movie. I mean, all of it sounds like a poorly written movie.
Yeah.
Like, he saw some Netflix show about attorneys defrauding people and thought he'd give it a shot against Nike.
In the March 21st meeting, he reiterates what his strategy will be if they don't pay him.
Sure.
He says, I just want to share with you what's going to happen if we don't reach a resolution. He said, as soon as this becomes public, I'm going to receive calls from all over the country, from parents and coaches and friends and all kinds of people. This is always what happens. And they're all going to say, I've got an email or a text message, or now 90% of this is going to be BS, because it's always BS 90% of the time. Always, whether it's R. Kelly or Trump, the list goes on and on. He says all this, but 10% of it actually is going to be true. And then what's going to happen is that this is going to snowball. And every time we get more information, that's going to be in the Washington Post, the New York Times, ESPN, a press conference, and the company will die. Not die, but they're going to incur cut after cut after cut after cut. And that's what's going to happen as soon as all this thing becomes public. Can you believe that?
No.
That is... I don't know. Listener, I don't know if you got tingly, but I got tingly reading that, okay?
And why did you get tingly because of that? Like, what about that is so shocking to you as an attorney?
Just the fact that, and I guess you know this intuitively, but like, you see it every time there's a scandal and there's people who hop on. Like, all of a sudden there's one person who steps forward and, you know, maybe it's legitimate, maybe it's not, but then all of a sudden you have 10 other people who come out of the woodwork, right? And he's essentially admitting here, and he's represented people who have come out of the woodwork, right? That he says 90% of it is just made up.
That's
right?
So basically
that's incredible.
He's coming right out and saying, when there's a big case like this, like a Nike fraud case or whatever, or a celebrity doing something bad and extorting people, the R. Kelly one is the one he mentions, he's basically saying 10% of what you see in the public is true, 90% of it is fake.
Yeah.
And this is from a guy who actually has experience doing this.
This is the guy who represents those people, right? Who are...
Maybe the 90% who are faking it.
Right.
Or the 10% who are telling the truth.
Yeah. Or sometimes representing the people who are being defamed, right? So it's just incredible to get, like, to see behind the curtain.
Right. So basically we're getting a look at the inner workings of some of the shady stuff that goes on in entertainment and these big legal battles and stuff. Okay, okay, I can understand the tingles now.
Okay.
I get it.
All right, and so now he's referencing today, okay? He says, if this is not papered on Monday, we are done, right? Essentially, if we don't have an agreement in place that you're going to pay me $20+ million and pay my client $1.5 million, we're done. And he says, I don't want to hear about somebody on a bike trip. I don't want to hear that somebody's grandmother has passed away or the dog ate my homework. I don't want to hear, none of it is going anywhere unless somebody was killed in a plane crash. Right? So essentially he's saying, no excuses, right? Unless someone dies, like, we are resolving this thing by Monday.
This guy's a peach. He must be great at parties. Like, did you invite the Avenaughties?
And it's
good. I'm glad Michael's going to be there.
I love how angry he comes across because a company is slow playing him because they're being like they're slow playing him while he's trying to extort them, and he's upset, right? He's like, let me extort you faster.
Yeah, not only that, but because I'm so angry, I'm going to keep threatening you and further indicting myself.
And to be clear, if
incriminating myself.
If it wasn't clear already, Nike had no intent. Obviously, they went to the FBI. They had no intention of ever paying this.
No.
But even if they did, these types of things don't get settled in like a day, right? It's like you need some time because like a lot of people have to sign off on that amount of money leaving the company. Right.
I mean, even the Robert Kraft thing, where apparently there's a video. It's going to take months and months and months for this to resolve itself properly.
All right, and so that's essentially the complaint. All right, and now, all right, so Monday comes, right? The Monday that he was referencing that it must all be resolved, right? Well, it wasn't resolved, and so Michael Avenatti tweeted out this morning. I think it was 9:16 a.m. Central Time, so adjust for your time zone. Says tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. We will be holding a press conference to disclose a major high school/college basketball scandal perpetrated by Nike.
He even tagged Nike.
That we have uncovered. This criminal conduct reaches the highest levels of Nike and involves some of the biggest names in college basketball. Okay. Less than an hour later, and it was reported really within about 30 minutes, but a tweet from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York says, press conference today at 2:30 to announce charges against Michael Avenatti for attempting to extract more than $20 million in payments by Nike by threatening to garner publicity to inflict financial and reputational harm if his demands were not met.
So this is fantastic because they're like, he comes out and says, we're going to do a press conference tomorrow. And Nike's like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. We're going to do one today. In fact.
And this tweet was probably the final nail, right? Because they have all of this corroborating evidence, and as soon as he says publicly, we're doing this press conference, that's all. I mean, they had enough information beforehand, but having this tweet just really sealed the deal for them, right?
So now no matter what he says tomorrow in his press conference, it's like, and we know it's all fake because of this thing that we got going on here.
And he was arrested today, so he's in custody. He hasn't tweeted since that.
He hasn't tweeted from jail?
He has not tweeted from jail.
I thought when like white collar criminals go to jail, they're given a golden iPhone.
Yeah. And so from a legal standpoint, like, what an incredible job.
If you break it, you jailbreak your iPhone.
What an incredible job by the attorneys. They played this masterfully. Well done to the in-house counsel at Nike and their external counsel, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies involved. Hopefully every procedural thing was in place and they didn't mess this up and evidence doesn't get thrown out. If nothing else, in the court of public opinion, I think Avenaughty is kind of done. But there's more to this. There actually is a...
Don't put your books away yet, kids.
Like, you may think, oh, Avenatti's going to jail, so, well, the Nike scandal that was to be is no more, because obviously it's fruit of the tainted tree, right?
Sure.
Or however that saying goes.
Something about fruit, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but no, like, there probably is a scandal somewhere, right? Like, if the claims that this coach had can be substantiated, that Nike was paying players, like, just because Avenaughty was trying to extort Nike doesn't mean that those claims aren't true. Like, often when you try to extort someone, it is with true information, right? You see this a lot when a relationship ends, that maybe was like an affair or something like that. The non-married party, or the party who has less to lose, says they'll go public with the affair if you don't pay me off, right? And it's not that the relationship was a fake relationship, it was real, but you don't want people to know about it.
Right, and that makes the threat have teeth, because if someone's like, okay, I didn't do this, so go for it, I don't care.
Right, exactly.
This brings me to one of my favorite non-sport scandals.
Okay.
So this girl posted a picture with herself and Jaromir Jagr sleeping together. Okay. Like them in bed, like literally sleeping. Like they were in bed the next morning, right?
Lovely.
And it was a much younger girl.
Okay.
And the girl was like, if you don't give me X amount of money, I'm going to post this all over social media and stuff like that. And he was like, go for it. Do your thing, girl. Put it all over the place, right? And so in the locker room the next day, all these like tweets and all this Instagram stuff of Jaromir Jagr with this much younger girl, like sleeping in their bed. And everyone's like, hey, Jagr. Like, what's going on here? He's like, what do you think's going on there? And it's the greatest Jaromir Jagr just like, and? That's how you handle that situation, man. Love that story.
Great story.
Another sports scandal story. So one time, this St. Louis sports broadcaster accused Albert Pujols of using steroids. That same day, that guy got a call from Albert Pujols' attorneys threatening to sue him for slander. He was fired that day.
Yeesh.
And he lost his job, and he apologized that same day. And that's how you handle that kind of situation.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Nike kind of handled it the same way. It was like, oh, really? Boom, boom. Let's get in this before you.
Yeah. And as far as Nike's concerned, they're saying they'll cooperate with any type of investigation. Adidas is currently, I think, under investigation right now for similar type things.
For the college
and
stuff,
let's not kid ourselves that this type of thing doesn't happen.
It's got to be.
It's happening. And, whether it should be illegal or not, I think there's a debate to be had there. I think we've been clear on our opinions in the past that we feel like players should be paid.
So Nike is earning money and not giving any of that money to the players who are wearing their gear to advertise for them.
Yeah, I mean,
isn't that like child labor?
Well, in this case, they're sponsoring the teams, right? Like the teams are able to travel and things like that because Nike's sponsoring the team.
Right. And so what does Nike get out of this? Advertising, right?
They get publicity and they get perhaps loyalty to the brand by these kids, right?
Right.
You grow up wearing Nikes, you want to be a Nike athlete.
Right. And so then for these kids, they're not getting compensated by this at all. What's the difference between?
Well, other than the leagues existing, right? Like
Right.
they're
Okay, I see what you're
benefiting
saying.
because they're benefiting from the exposure as well.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But
Just like the college argument. I mean,
right. But it is these kids are being taken advantage of, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if they're being taken advantage of
Because they are getting opportunities when they get
and they know what they're signing up for. Like I don't even think the college athletes are being taken advantage of. I just think that they have a skill that's a commodity, and they should be properly compensated for it. Like I don't like to use the terminology of being taken advantage of, because to me that implies that they don't know that someone else is profiting off of them. I think everyone knows they're going in with eyes wide open. I just think people feel like it shouldn't be this way.
Right. So it still might not be fair. Was what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I think there's an argument to be made that it's not fair, or that it's imbalanced for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you said this Nike thing's not going to win anytime soon. I mean,
well, I don't think so.
We're almost at an hour.
I know. No, for purposes of the podcast, I think we can be done with Nike and probably done with Avenaughty for a while. Oh, real quick, co-conspirator was Mark Garagos. Okay, it was revealed, at least reportedly. I don't want to be sued by Mr. Garagos.
When he listens.
He reportedly is Mark Garagos. You may not know him, but he's also a celebrity attorney, or represents celebrities. Notoriously has represented like Chris Brown and other people who have trouble. He's representing Jussie Smollett right now, the Empire actor who allegedly
he faked a beating.
Faked a beating, right? Hired some guys to act like they were beating him up and tied a noose around his neck. So he's representing that guy right now. So he represents a lot of celebrities, usually criminal defense.
A lot of high-profile cases.
And he was also the attorney representing Colin Kaepernick.
Against whom?
Against the NFL.
Colin Kaepernick is sponsored by?
Nike. So, not super relevant to this proceeding necessarily, this investigation, but just interesting, right? Like, you wonder what the thought process was there and what he maybe learned by having a Nike client.
What does he know?
What does he know? Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure.
Uh-oh.
These attorneys are being Avenaughty.